You're listening to Together by AGCI. I'm Marissa Butterworth.
And I'm Melissa Rush. Okay, Marissa, did you know that you can now listen or watch this podcast? We record the video footage too.
Well, Melissa, I did know that because it's painful every time we record and I have to put makeup on. But I do keep forgetting to mention it. So I guess I should say you're listening or watching Together by AGCI.
I feel your pain there.
Right?
Well, for this episode, we decided to do something really special. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from families that were able to bring their children home through adoption this year.
These were really so fun for us to be able to record. They're going to be sharing their adoption stories, the hard things that happened, the beauty, and the miracles that they had a front row seat to.
We loved hearing about all of their sweet kids, and we hope that you feel as encouraged and inspired as we do.
So I'm Jennifer, and this is my husband, Jed Ward, and we're in Woodland, California.
So amazing. Well, every adoption story that I've ever heard, including my own, is full of ups and downs. I don't know, miracles, like they're, and especially we just went through COVID. I'm guessing that you guys, lived through that too, of getting your kids home. But would you just share some of your adoption story with us?
So we tried to have our own because I have three sons from a previous marriage and we don't have any together. So we were looking at the whole IVF situation, all of that. And one night we were sitting in bed talking and we just were like, you know what, that's not what God's calling us to do. So we looked at adoption and I did a Google search and AGCI is the first one that came up. Mm-hmm. So we went with that. I filled out the little information thing and the next day I got a phone call. And that's kind of how it all started.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think we went into this with so many different expectations. Like, I felt like I've always wanted to adopt. I don't know why, but even as like a child, that was on my heart. We went through the IVF process, and as we got into it, we felt like it was more of a like this weird medical thing. And we're just like, why are we doing this when there's so many kids out there that need a home? And we went into the adoption process wanting to adopt a baby and grow our family that way. And throughout the process, and after, I believe it was Lila from AGCI sent us a waiting children's list, we both went and reviewed the list and Jed called and he's like, I found our boys. And it ended up being at the time a 7 and 8 year old. And I was like, okay.
All right, here we go.
Yeah. And so just God, surprises us all the time with, we think we knew our plans are what we want. And then he just throws a curveball at you. So we went through the process. It was a long process. It was, it's a lot of work. Especially when you're used to like families that do more of a domestic process and still process, but not as lengthy. And then add COVID, right? I think our biggest obstacle was finding a psychologist that would be willing to meet with us face to face. And that took
quite a few months.
And a flight to Southern California to be able to accomplish that. So that was probably the biggest hurdle we had. And then just timing. But now that we have our kids home, I would say, gosh, I wish I would have appreciated some of that time that God gave us during the waiting a little bit more. I mean, we definitely made time of it and spent time together, but I wish I would have held that closer to my heart and realized that God had us in that waiting for a reason. Not only was he preparing Joanne and Juan for us, but he was kind of preparing Jed and I for our life being completely flipped upside down. So I would just, and there were so many times in that waiting that we were getting frustrated and we just were like, we want our boys. Cause of course you're just like, they're waiting for us.
Yes.
But I just, want to encourage families like that waiting period is so special for you and your spouse or just you as your family preparing for that. So make the most out of your waiting time because life will never be the same for good reasons, but it just will never be the same.
And the one thing that process did for us, which I didn't think we could come or become closer, it brought us even closer together through that process.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I love that. So when did you expect, with COVID timelines, when did you expect to bring them home?
Well, we were actually given some timelines, and I get a lot of things are out of control. And so we were about a year later than what we originally expected through the process. So we expected to bring them home September, October of last year, and we ended up bringing them home in August of this year.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you really are. You're just fresh in the middle of it right now.
Yeah. Like praying this morning, like, okay, remember all the good things. We're not going to be negative.
No. Yeah. I mean, it's real though. It's true. Like, it's just, you're kind of thrust into the middle of a kind of a crazy storm. And, there are so many amazing things, and there are also like realistically very difficult things that you have to go through, and challenges to you personally of like, oh my gosh, am I going to make this through? I can tell you, you're going to make it through from experience, but it challenges everything in you. And for the most beautiful, I love that you said that it's brought you two closer together too, because it does. And you have a choice of how you all react to everything. So did you guys feel like you were prepared for this? Like, did they do a good job preparing you? Are you feeling all right on that point? Or do you feel like you have, still people that you can call and lean into if you need help?
I mean, I definitely think the Forever, or Families Are Forever training definitely prepared us in a capacity that we were not prepared for, even having raised kids. Just, some of that training, I'm like, I wish that every parent would have to go through that, because we come at parenting either the way that we were parented ourselves, or on this, for me, I'm like, okay, that was a complete ego trip, and you kind of have to meet your children in a different capacity, especially children from hard places. So that, I think, was one of the strongest tools that we were given through this process that we didn't have.
Yeah.
As far as being prepared, I mean, I'm going to be just transparent. The oldest child that we adopted, we were definitely set up for like, hey, this is where he's at. This is what he's going through. But he's actually further behind than we thought.
Then you realize, okay.
I mean, he couldn't eat with a fork or knife at 10 years old when we met him. Oh. And so, full transparency, it kind of scared us. Because we were ready for one thing, and I don't even know if we were really ready for it. We just mentally thought we were. And then to know that he was a little bit more delayed or stunted in his growth than we thought, it did scare us initially, but we're definitely working through some of those challenges. And he's an incredible child. But
yes,
just like, oh gosh, we're going to have to be parents forever. Like, he's going to have to live with us. And that we are quickly realizing that's not the scenario. So I think we kind of psyched ourselves out at the beginning too.
Yes. But anything that I don't blame you for feeling that way. Anything like that, that's a pretty big curveball to think that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big deal. I don't blame you for feeling like that. So what was it like meeting the boys for the first time?
It was, I mean, of course, we were anxious, nervous, scared, all those feelings wrapped all into a little ball, right? And they're sitting right in your chest, wondering how they're going to think about you. And I just, initially, when they walked out and seeing them, it made everything worth it. Yeah. All the ups and downs, the long wait, it made everything worth it. And then their reaction was, as soon as they walked out and saw us, they just both started to sob.
Yeah.
And they just came over and just hugged us. And that, it was the reassurance of, okay, these boys need us.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what helped clung us to some of those, like, just the selfish moments of like, oh gosh, what's this mean for us, right? Instead of that outward focus of, oh my gosh, these two children have just not really been given an ounce of a choice in life. And God has provided us with the resources and the love that these children need. And so those are the things that help you get through some of the doubts or, some of those voices that you hear that are not truth, but you still get those in your head about the things that won't work out instead of the things that are needed. And that was the thing that I think was the most of the surprise, because on the Zoom calls that you're having with these kids prior to meeting with them, they're excited, they're ready, they're excited about a new journey and a new life. But the reality is that when you meet them, you realize how just broken their lives have been and how sad they are and scared they are of like, okay, we're going with this completely new family. We're scared, but we want to be loved. And so all of these little emotions that these children are having, you're just watching unfold as you meet them. And so I think that our meeting them was very powerful. And even like the cards that we send to friends and stuff are just like, you can just see the emotion in the kids' faces of I don't want to say rescued, but almost being rescued from the place that they've been.
Oh my goodness. I can't imagine. They are very brave little boys. I can't imagine how scary that would be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially at that age, they have awareness of everything going on. And
Well, it was scary for us.
Yeah.
And we're adults.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. To put yourself in their shoes when you have fear too. So I know that they've only been home since August, and I'm sure that this will grow and change. But what would you say are your favorite things about each of them?
For being brothers, they are so different.
Oh, complete opposites.
And we, how you like paint this picture in your head about how these children are going to be based off the little information that you have.
Yep.
It was polar opposite. So the oldest one, Joanne, has the most delays right now. He will grow out of those, I believe, with my whole heart.
And he already
Okay.
is.
But he has the most kind and sweet and gentle heart. And then Juan, the 9-year-old little brother, is just this fireball with this sarcastic, fun personality. But quickly had to realize that he's not in charge of the family.
Yes, that's rough.
But they just, they have precious for the life that they were dealt in the beginning. They have overcome so much trauma with just genuinely good souls. And that's the part that I'm like, everything that we had to go through and all the difficult things that we've been through and will go through will make it worth it, because they have added so much to our family already.
It's brought our whole family closer together.
Yeah.
I mean, Juan's little, his sense of humor, he's hilarious.
I mean, just today, Joanne, his new thing is we're trying to learn a word a day in English. And it's the day after Halloween. They're tired. And Mom this morning, of course, is like, what's your word going to be today? Remember to learn a word. And he looks at me and he goes, crazy. I'm like, okay, well enough said.
That's fair. Okay.
So
oh my gosh.
Like that it's like just finding joy in those little moments as we're growing. So yeah.
I love that. That's crazy. I think that describes the day after Halloween. That's the perfect word of the day. That's how we're feeling here too. Okay, so what Christmas tradition do you look forward to sharing with your kids?
Honestly, all of it. So we asked them what they would do for Christmas, and they never have really done anything. So everything is going to be new to them.
Yeah.
So,
and they've said like they don't have good memories of Christmas. And so Christmas is by far Jed's favorite holiday too. So he's like, okay, well, this is going to be bananas because we're just going to go crazy.
I'm the Clark Griswold. Lights on the house, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
I love it. Good. That's the best Christmas ever. Little do they know what they're in for.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool this year. So when we have been celebrating, we have Colombian friends, Colombian traditions we've tried to work into our normal life. And both the kids are, and I hate to say this, but right now they just don't want anything to do with Columbia. And I think it's just, seasons of disappointment, right? And I know as they
Hmm.
grow, they're going to want to identify with their culture more, and we will absolutely encourage that. But I want to be mindful, like, they just want some newness right now, and they don't want to have
Mm.
reminders. So, like the fireworks for Christmas and things like that, I would definitely love to do, but they just want to know what it's like to celebrate how we do it. And so for right now, this season will be that. And hopefully we can start to incorporate Colombian traditions as they're ready for it. But they have been very vocal that they
Yes.
want to only do what we do.
Well, I think it has something to do with them feeling safe.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just want to be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, I don't blame them. That's it's got to be so hard at their age too, as they're processing it. And then, I mean, I would imagine this is the first that they're even getting a say in their life and their what they do. So just that you're giving them some of their power back, I think is just amazing.
Yeah, that's just it. Giving them power and choice, which they've just
Yeah.
always been in a situation and typically not a great one. So I think just giving them the power of choice to make decisions that feel good to them.
Well, it kind of broke our hearts when we were in Columbia. We went to a grocery store because we needed to get snacks for the hotel room, and we told them. They said, "What do you guys want? You get to pick it out." And they were struggling, like almost to the point where they were going to melt down because they didn't know what to choose. So we asked them, "Have you ever been able to choose anything or pick anything for yourselves?" And they both said, "No, we've never been able to pick anything we wanted."
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you guys seem like you're amazing parents. I'm so glad that, you are all in each other's lives. And I so appreciate this.
I am Missy Evans, and we have adopted from South Africa. We just got home 6 months ago.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you're on here. Thank you for agreeing to do this. Thank you for helping with dealing with tech issues now, me being sick, all of the things, and having a deep man voice no one wanted to hear. I'm so excited to hear more about it. So every adoption story that I've ever heard, including my own, was full of ups and downs and crazy things. And you probably also had like the addition of COVID and travel restrictions and all the things. Would you just share some of your story with us?
Sure. So, when we actually, my husband and I had decided that we were going to adopt from South Africa, the next month, COVID happened.
Oh my gosh. So it was that soon after. Perfect.
Yeah, it was February. We had filled out all the stuff on the website, and then a month later COVID hit. So we hadn't even started our home study process, like none of that. And then we were in the limbo of like, are we going to be able to, like, are we going to be able to even go over there? But we had slowly had started just going through the process. We then announced, that April that we were going to be adopting, and everybody still thought it was insane because we're in a shutdown, like everybody.
Yes.
The whole world was in a shutdown. But we kept right on going and did a garage sale, did fundraising. I remember talking with somebody at AGCI saying that like it's amazing to see how God is going to provide those funds. And I was like, oh my gosh, does he know? Does God know how much it is? Like,
You're like,
surely he knows.
Certainly you've looked at the numbers, sir.
Yeah, it's like he knows, he has seen it. But like COVID in a way, like people weren't able to even go to the Salvation Army or the Goodwill to like bring their clothes there. So we were like, we'll take all of your stuff. And we did a big garage sale, a big fundraising garage sale. We had raised enough money for our home study fee. And little by little, like everything that was closed, like opened up, like just when we needed it, like just, and then last year, we were getting ready to travel, and like, then there was this new variant in South Africa.
Oh my gosh. Of course.
Of course it's in South Africa, but it didn't seem to stop the process. Like we were able to, like, everything that we needed happened when we needed it. And just watching even God, like time and time, like just the amount of money that we needed at certain times, like God was like, there's the money you need. There's, the finances for that. So, it was stressful, but yet like watching God like work through all of it was amazing.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And talk about stressful. You like never didn't know the stress. You always had that like COVID looming
Yes.
over with everything that you
Yes.
did. That's
Mhm.
just incredible. So what was your like expected timeline? And did that change at all for you at all? Like with COVID, the number that you were thinking when you first applied versus, when you're kind of in the middle of it?
So we actually didn't have any expectations of like timelines. And I know like they had given us like potentially, 2 to 3 years before even
Okay.
traveling. So we were kind of going in it at like the long haul of waiting. And actually, we didn't expect, we were actually matched before we even dossier registered. So,
Wow. That's
yeah. So
amazing. Okay.
so it was quick, but slow at the same time. So like even like for our home city, like everything was like COVID didn't seem to necessarily hold it up, like I think from our perspective, because we were thinking like, oh, we're going to be hanging out for a while, even just waiting to get matched. And I was actually flying to Hawaii with my oldest daughter, and my husband was blowing up my phone.
Oh my gosh.
Because
Yeah.
I landed in Seattle and he was like, oh my gosh, pick up your phone. And I'm like, he was like, AGCI just contacted us. I'm like, do not tell me I am not even home. And we're getting a
Oh
match.
my.
And sure enough, and we weren't, like I said, we weren't even dossier registered. So then we had to like get all of our paperwork in to just even be registered in the country. And then of course, in the beginning, I was like, oh, the wait isn't going to be that bad because I have 3 other children at home. But then we saw her face and I'm like, then it's like government, like they have their own timeline. It's not the same as
Yes.
my timeline. And there's nobody I can call to complain to. There's nobody I can, contact to say like, just sign this piece of paper.
I feel that so deeply. Yes. There's like,
Yes.
I've never felt more helpless.
Yes. And nobody cares. Nobody cares what your problems, at those government levels.
Nope. No,
so we
that's
just
like the last thing they're worried about.
No, I know. I'm like, it would be so much easier if they could like see that little piece of paper, like just put a signature on it, and then it's off
Yes.
then you don't even have to worry about it. Then you don't have to deal with
Just sign it. And I'm not going to bother you anymore.
I remember one of the pieces of paper that we were waiting for was like literally like this flimsy piece of paper with like 3 lines on it and a signature. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like we waited, like this is what we were waiting for. Yeah. So I think like the complexity too was like all the shutdowns and stuff were happening here, but then like, in the other country, like all of it was like either like restarting or never even open, or some of like those social workers over in South Africa were working from home. So,
yep.
And they're already slower.
Yes.
And then,
it just like compounds on each other. Yes. I love that you said that. Like, there isn't anyone that you can like call or hassle. It's not like it is here where you're like, hey, I've been waiting. You said it's going to be this long. There's just nothing. And it makes you feel a little insane, at least me.
Yes.
I'm speaking from my own experience, but yes.
Like we've adopted our 3rd youngest. We adopted from foster care.
Okay.
And I don't know if they cared, but I could like complain and, get some things going. But here I was like, literally, there is nobody to contact. I just have to wait.
No, it's a special brand of torture. It really is.
Very much so.
Oh my gosh. So did you feel prepared like on the parenting side? I mean, you had 3 kids already. Did you go into it feeling like you knew kind of what to expect and what you were doing? Or did this throw you, 6 months ago when you brought her home?
I think, my husband and I, we've been foster parents for many years too, before jumping into adopting from South Africa. And so I wouldn't say like, oh, we got parenting down packed. But
the more kids you have, the more you don't.
No, exactly. Oh my gosh. And then they start using like things that you like say, like using it back at you. You're like, oh my gosh. Like,
oh no, what have I done?
Yeah. But I think the thing that was different, obviously, with Omo is the fact that we were taking her out of her country. And so for me, it was, I had a harder time kind of like how we're going to parent that. Like, like for her, she knew nothing different. Like she knew nothing was wrong per se.
Yeah.
She's been there since birth, and that is home. She doesn't have a concept of mom and dad or family, so I was trying to kind of on the front end working that out. Like, what is that going to look like when she comes home? Like, does she have a version of home? Like sisters, she's a dog, and kind of like trying to, and almost like grieving for her as much as we were so excited for her to come home, but like grieving her loss there, that is her home. She has community there. She has friends there, and kind of how we were going to handle those questions, back here when we are home. And so kind of trying to figure that out, and that was kind of where my head was that entire year before we traveled, was just her loss. And like I said, kind of like taking her, like, not only is she's, in South Africa where it's fairly warm, like now we're bringing her, Minnesota where it is freezing and snow and, all of like the climate stuff, for her as well. So, so that's where I kind of think like my brain was the majority, and there's no like books to prepare you for that, or, podcasts that you can listen to prepare you for that.
Maybe we'll have to do one on this.
Yeah.
It's like, it's for real though. Yeah. It's definitely that, when you realize the like loss that they're going to be experiencing coming home to you, that it isn't, I think there's previously been the idea that this is like, it's like the saving them mentality that, I mean, it still exists out there, but is not true,
Right.
And this is another like trauma in their lives, and something that they're going to have to grieve as well. It's hard. It's good that you knew that ahead of time. I'm so glad.
Yeah. Well, that's like, even when we were in country, just being foster parents, we knew like every transition for her was going to be difficult. And so like we were so grateful for the time that we had in country, because we were there for 6 weeks. And we were all together as a family. My other 3 girls were there too. But at the same time, like I couldn't wait to get home, because I knew each move for her was going to be hard. And the longer that we were in country, the more she was, like we had an Airbnb there. We were careful to not call it home. It was just the place that we were staying. And so we were constantly showing her pictures of home and like our dog and like our friends. Yeah. Our friends were sending us video of her so that she could see, like, we have a dog at home. And like, we had pictures of her room and telling her the kids' room, like everybody has, a pink room, a gray room, everybody's thing. So it could make the transition a little bit easier coming home. And she was so excited when we got home. Like, so I don't know if it worked, but she was, when we were in South Africa, she kept saying, are we going, like when we'd go places, we're going to go back to the place that we're staying. Like she followed suit with our verbiage.
So she followed your lead. Yes.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So
I love
she never called it home. And like I said, when we did get home, then she knew like, this is home. And, and even when we were, just a couple of weeks ago, she had told me, she said she misses South Africa. Like she says she misses South Africa. She misses her, they call them grannies. And she said, I sometimes miss my granny. And I was like, that's okay. Like,
yes,
you do. And she said, but she goes, Mom, I really like having a mom and a dad. And I was like, and she was like, she's like, I said, you do? And she goes, yeah. And she goes, and I really like having a family. And, like words that, like kids shouldn't have to say, but at the same time, like she recognizes like her loss, but, also recognizes she likes having mom and dad. She likes having, I mean, we have a video even of her, like, going in her own bed. Like she was like, she'd cover herself up and then she took the blankets down and then she's like rolling around. She brought all her books in, she covered herself, like, some of those like things that you just take for granted. And she was like, it was a whole new world.
That's amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because those two things like exist simultaneously. Like she can feel that loss and at the same time be happy. I think that's like the story of life, but the story of adoption is like having all these things, all these conflicting feelings all at the same time.
Right.
It's complicated, but I mean, I'm like on the verge of ugly crying over here. So I'm like, oh gosh. No one wants to see it. Trust me. Okay. So what was it like meeting her for the first time?
It was so funny because like we, or at least me, I don't know, like imagined like what that day was gonna look like, and and what she was gonna think and what we were gonna think and say, and all of the things. And when we had went to the orphanage, actually our social worker had videoed, taken her phone and recorded it for us.
Oh,
And yeah, Omo was so excited to see us, and we could see her. There was load shedding, so it was dark in the place, but they had put us kind of where there was windows, so it was a little bit light. So we
okay.
could see her, and they had put box braids in her hair, so she looked completely different
Yeah,
from.
you're like, wait.
Yes, she looked like a little grown up girl. Like she was completely
Oh,
different. But her grannies like turned her around and were like, that's them, and we were all like, of course, math. I'm like, I am taking this off. Like, I'm not gonna have the first thing she sees is like this part of my face.
yes.
And she actually was so excited, she ran over to us without shoes on. And the social worker, they were all like calling her back in the video because she needed to get her shoes on before
She's
coming
like,
to see them.
uh-uh.
Yeah, it was like she was so ready to like, see who these people were that she had been, seeing pictures. And we were able to have one FaceTime call with her like 2 weeks before we left. So she could see us. She talked with us,
Okay.
very briefly, but all of us, like our kids were there. We were all like sitting in a circle, and she kind of like slowly like came into the circle and like looked at every one of us like, okay, like I've seen you in a picture and you in a picture.
My
And I like
gosh.
just scooped her up because I was like, oh my gosh, you're in the flesh. And like scooped her up and squeezed her really quick. Like in the video, you could see like I quick squeeze her because she wanted to like look all around. And I had sunglasses on the
Yes.
top of my head. She yanks my sunglasses off and puts them on, and she like looks all around at us like.
She's like,
Yeah.
So she's
Yeah.
automatically the coolest.
Yes.
She's like,
Yes.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
are better on me. Now
Exactly.
I can see it all clearly.
Yep.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's the cutest.
Yeah. And it was just like I said, it was like just a like surreal moment because you wait, we had really only 9 months of waiting until we had traveled, but seemed like an eternity. And you are just getting pictures and videos, and to finally like be there sitting there, even meeting the people that had been taking care of her, this entire time. And I had brought a bag of suckers with, and she didn't take a sucker for herself, but she handed out the suckers to all the workers that were there. Like she kept coming back to the
Oh,
bag. Yeah, she didn't take a sucker for herself, but she handed it all out to everybody. And I think even for her, like it was like one of those, you can see in some of the pictures. I was just recently looking at some of those pictures, and you can see in her face like she was trying to figure out what was going on, and
yep.
like, now who are these people? And she was pretty shy the first couple of days, but she hasn't stopped talking since.
And then that ended.
Mhm. Yes.
Oh
And
my
sometimes I
God.
think she talks just to hear herself talk. Like I think it's just,
Yep.
it's not usually a whole lot of I just need to talk.
She's been saving it all this time for you
Exactly.
guys. She's got a lot to tell you.
She does. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I
Mhm.
know you said she's only been home 6 months, and you're
Mhm.
probably still getting to know her, but what would you say are some of your favorite, or what's your favorite thing so far about her?
I think it's her ability to really adapt. Like we are a sarcastic family, pretty loud, and she has caught on to joking and sarcasm, and even just like even the things that we love doing. Like we were home 2 weeks, and we're like, we're going camping, and she has no concept of camping. She tells you camping is my best, mom, camping is my best. Like we go camping all the time, like.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she loves it. Yeah. And so she even like we just had Halloween, and she doesn't know what Halloween is, but she dressed up and she went with my other youngest and went trick-or-treating and loved it. Like you get chocolate because chocolate is also her best.
I mean,
And
it's my best too. I'm going to say that now forever.
yeah, so
Chocolate is my
it's
best.
her best. Yeah. And then the next day it was so funny because she was like, she says to my youngest, which she learns a lot from my 7-year-old, like
Okay.
a ton.
I'm
of stuff.
sure.
good and bad, but mostly
All
good.
the things. Okay, good.
All of the things.
Yes.
But she looks at Grace and she was like, what are we going to dress up for on Christmas?
Oh
Grace
my
is like,
gosh.
we don't dress up for Christmas.
But we can. Dress up is my best.
Yeah, it's my best.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. That is
Yeah.
like the cutest thing ever. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
And
her.
yeah. She is, and like I said, so her ability just to adapt to just even being in our family. And like, you know, we had prayed before bringing her home that she would feel like she would know this is her family. Like she would, that like the transition, like, yes, there'll be bumps, there'll be, you know, like she didn't like my husband for the first couple of weeks in country, you know, like there was things like that, but that she would really know like this was her home, and the transition would be easy. And it really, really has been. Like
Oh, good.
she loves doing all of the things. She loves, you know, it's like this was like she's been with our family for 4 years, you know, when when we've only stepped into her life, you know, at the age of 4. Yeah. So it's been, that has been fun to see. And my girlfriend will like remind me often, like, this is what you prayed for. Like this is what we've prayed for, is for her to be so much part of your family. And she really, really is. And she's got the sass too, like all my other girls.
Good. I love a sassy
Yeah.
girl. They're harder to
Mhm.
raise sometimes when they're little, but you need a lot of sass as a girl. Just a
Yeah.
lot of extra something. Well, and I love that you say that, because it also speaks to like I just, when you're talking about her, like how strong she is, that
Mhm.
she even could jump in and like that's hard. Like
Yeah.
just jumping into new like totally new
Mhm.
things, new family dynamics, new everything.
Yeah.
And that she's like conquering it and game for that, like just shows her own, you
Mhm.
know, inner strength and perseverance and like leaning into all that. And I'm so
Yeah.
glad that she feels safe enough to do that and like
Mhm.
be herself and, you know,
Yeah.
her sassy self.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah. And
Love
actually
it.
a couple, like before we had traveled there, we had gotten an email from the social worker, and it was a video about from Omo, or just of Omo, not from her. But in the video, the social worker was like, say hi to mommy and daddy. And at that time, like Omo knew nothing about us. It wasn't supposed to know anything about us until we had gotten a court date. And so I had asked
Oh.
about that. I had asked Jenna from AGCI about that. And she was like, oh, no, I'm going to check in on that. And so she had asked the social worker in country, and she was like, oh, no. She was like this girl has been asking when she's going home, like when she knows nothing about us, but she has been watching like kiddos leave. And so she was wondering when it was her
When it
time
was
to
her
go home.
turn.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So like, it was almost like in her spirit, like she was ready to, she knew, you know, she knew that wasn't necessarily home where she was at. Like she knew she was going to go somewhere else. And what her version of home is, you know, at that time. But she was ready. Like she went running through that door when she saw us. Like she was ready
She
to go
does not
home.
need her shoes. Her shoes
No.
are not her best. But,
No.
but you guys were. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's like,
Yeah.
I love it, love it, love it. Okay. So you've kind of made the transition to Christmas, and I'm now going to need to hear if she dresses up and what she dresses up as for Christmas. But what like Christmas traditions do you look forward to sharing with her?
Oh, you know, I am so like everybody, all my friends, like everybody knows that I am so, well, one, like we are big Christmas people, but like this year I am so looking forward to, because we are going to be celebrating with her. Last year we were so close to being able to travel before Christmas. And I remember Jenna at AGCI said to me, she said, this is either going to be your first Christmas with her or your last Christmas without her. And of course, yeah. And as much as we wanted her to be at home with us, you know, God's timing is always better than ours. And so we didn't actually travel until April. And so I am so looking forward to all of the things with her. Like we do cookie baking, Christmas movie night. She's already talking about Christmas, because you can't see in this room, but I already have a Christmas tree. It is.
I love it.
Yeah. And so she was like, she even had like the Christmas skirt, and she's like, why is the Christmas tree wearing a dress? Because I kept saying, I need the Christmas skirt. I can't find a Christmas skirt. So
Oh my
like,
gosh,
why
I
does it
love
need to wear a dress? Yeah. And so she everything is gonna be new. Santa, like we do Santa here, and presents, like I'm looking forward to all of it. I'm
All
so
of
excited
it.
for this year. It's just yeah, I'm
Best
looking forward to
Christmas
all of it.
ever. I
Yes.
love it.
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
she's probably going to love it all too, because she sounds amazing. She's like,
Yes.
Christmas is my best.
Yes, Christmas. Yes, exactly. Yep. Yeah. But it's funny
Oh,
because now I'm like, because both the little girls are like, when we go to Target, because Target is also the best.
yes.
Can I have this? Can I have this? And I'm like, well, wait for Christmas. So now she's like, I need this for Christmas. I need this for Christmas.
She's
I
already
need this
caught
for
on.
Christmas. Yes. Doesn't
She's
take
like,
very
I see
long.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My
Yeah.
daughter's the same. She's already
Yeah.
moved on to like, let's add this to my list. It's very long and extensive now. I'm like, we
Yeah.
cannot get all these things, but okay, we'll just
Yeah.
keep adding it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
this is the best. She sounds
Yeah.
really genuinely like the best gift. I can't
Yes.
even talk. The best gift ever. Like,
Yeah.
I am so excited for you guys. Now I'm going to
Yeah.
have to like check in and see how Christmas was. If you hear from me again, you'll know I'm thinking of it and I need to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, Thanksgiving, Christmas, I mean, it's just
Mhm.
going to be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it will be. It will be so, like I said, so magical already. But now with her being home, and just longing for that last year, and now, like, even just the other day, I told my husband, she was in her room playing. We're in the living room in her room. We can see her, and it's like, can you believe we just did that? Like we last year we were waiting, and like now we went there, brought her home, and now she's here. I'm like, can you believe that just happened? Like that just happened.
We just did this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because at least for me, when we started the process, like, yeah, it does feel like there's so many steps, there's so much to get done. It can feel so
Mhm.
big and overwhelming. So I'm glad that you even just took that second to be like, whoa,
Yeah,
look
we
what
just did
happened.
all of that. And our kids came with us along for the ride. So
I mean, that in and
Yeah.
of itself is impressive. 6
Yeah.
weeks I always see that on like timelines. I'm like, oh boy, I can't imagine like
Yeah.
what that looks like, but
Yeah.
it sounds like it looked perfect. It was just what
Yeah.
it needed to be.
Yep. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much
Yeah.
for getting on and sharing about her. She really sounds absolutely incredible. She sounds a
Mhm.
lot like my daughter too.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're going to have to meet. This is the
Yes.
spirit my daughter has too. She's
Yes.
older. She's 10, but she would think she was the best, I'm sure.
Yes.
Oh, she sounds
Yeah.
amazing. Well, I
Yeah.
really do like, thank you. Thank you for all your patience and
Yeah.
understanding and getting on, like just taking the time to do this, because
Yeah.
I really think it will encourage so many people that
Mhm.
are like in the middle of it and waiting, and
Yeah.
everybody has different stories, but I hope it's an encouragement to everybody.
Well, we are so excited to have Kristen and Brad on the podcast. Kristen and Brad are an AGCI adoptive family, and they're going to be sharing their beautiful story with us today. Welcome, guys.
Hey there.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you for making the time. So I would just love to start with your adoption story. Just start at the very beginning. What brought you to adoption? How it all went from there? I'd love to hear it all.
Yeah, so as you probably know from speaking with other families, it was a lot of circular roads, ups and downs, but we had made the decision to adopt in 2019 and had quickly partnered with AGCI in that process. And through that, we kind of were led to Bulgaria just with the ages of our current children and looking at the ages of the kids and the special needs that were coming out of Bulgaria. It seemed to work well with our family structure. So that first whole year was all about paperwork.
Yeah.
I don't think we did anything else other than paperwork for the home study and getting everything in order. And I think really the timeline that AGCI had kind of followed, we were thinking that it would take, 3 to 4 years, for everything to kind of finalize. So waiting was hard, but we were kind of like, well, let's just keep living our life and doing the things that we need to do. So after that.
And part of that first year was COVID. So it was a lot of like,
yes,
everybody was on lockdown at the beginning there.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was sort of a good time to be doing all the paperwork. It kind of worked out well. And there's a lot of classes that you have to take and like
Mhm.
trainings and stuff like that. So we were doing all of that during the beginning of COVID there. So
Yeah, and I think that one of the low points for us was two back to back. First was COVID, and then our home study agency that we were using in our state of Pennsylvania decided to drop their Hague accreditation, and
Oh.
so we weren't even sure where our adoption stood and if we would have to start back at the beginning. And I remember just some low points of a lot of tears and being like, "Is this something that we can do or that we should do?"
Yeah.
If we have to start over from the beginning. And kind of as things move forward, we had another agency step in that was able to help get us back on track. It wasn't without some repeat paperwork, but that's okay. And then we were able to get registered with the Ministry of Justice in 2021. No, 2020.
Those
it
COVID
all-
years kind of blend together. I know.
Yeah.
Sometime
During COVID, we made it on the list
Yeah.
to start waiting. So I think one of the craziest things was then how fast things went from that point.
Right. So we got all of the stuff registered, and then it was like, okay, now begins the wait. And you hear about people that have been waiting for 4 or 5 years, and we're like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine waiting for that long.
Mhm.
And it still seemed like a long time,
It
but it
did.
was really only a few months that we waited. And we had a couple of like, I don't know, other children that had popped up that it might have been a match, and then it wasn't for various reasons. But then and after each of them, it was like, okay, well then back to the wait. And right around, was it my birthday weekend? I think
It was really close to it. Yeah.
we found out about. So our adopted son that we're talking about, his name is Nikolai. We call him Nico.
Mhm.
So we got his information on right around my birthday, and I mean, we had only been waiting for.
A year. We were on
Was it a year?
Mhm. Yeah.
We were waiting a year.
So yeah, it was crazy because then everything, once you receive your referral, things
Yeah.
move so fast, light speed, and there's so many really big important decisions to be made, and so we were really digging into his medical file with a adoption specialist doctor, and then we made the decision to move forward, which is probably one of the happiest days of at least of my life in terms of like you kind of feel like you have a child. You haven't
Yeah.
met him yet,
Yeah.
but you feel like he's ours. So it was so exciting to be able to make that decision that yes, he will be our son. But we're still in COVID. And so I think one thing unique about our adoption was that we weren't able to make that first trip to Bulgaria at that time. They were doing everything virtually. So they were like, how would you like to have a virtual first trip to Bulgaria?
Yeah, a virtual first trip, and they gave us the dates and times. So it was at 10 a.m. his time in Bulgaria, and it happened to be the week that we took our other two children to Disney World.
Oh.
And we were going to Disney World all day and coming home and going to bed and setting our alarm for 2 a.m. and getting up, and like Kristen was putting on makeup and I'm like trying to do my hair so it doesn't look like bedhead. And then we were literally meeting with him virtually every day that week on Zoom at 3 a.m. our time.
Yeah.
For like an hour, we're playing with puppets and like trying to like, make it seem like, look, we're great people. You want to come home and live with us?
Yeah.
And then we're going back to sleep for like trying to get 2 more hours of sleep so that we can get our other two kids up at 7 a.m. and take them to Disney World again.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I
Crazy.
really didn't want Nico to think he was coming to live with a scary witch. So I was really trying to put a lot of effort into my appearance for those 3 a.m. phone calls. So
Yes.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
and it was hard because he was not, when we first started, he had a birthday like right as we were doing our first visit, but he was turning 2.
Mhm.
So to try to FaceTime with a child who's not used to technology,
Yeah.
who is not even used to being out with caretakers in like a common room,
Doesn't
Yeah.
speak English.
doesn't speak English, and we're trying to interact with him to get to know him like on a deeper level was bananas. So,
Yeah.
Excited enough to keep his attention, but quiet enough to keep our other two kids asleep.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Cause they're like probably right there and it's the middle
Yes.
of the night.
Middle
Oh
of the night.
gosh.
It was a lot of like leaning into the camera with puppets. So we'll save the videos, and looking back at them now, it's like, I don't know how we did it. We were so exhausted the
Yeah.
entire, it was just a week of adrenaline. But
And so
Ugh.
then from there, it was really just like getting all that the acceptance paperwork in order, and you're kind of held hostage by your own state, how quickly they can apostille documents. And
Yeah.
our state is not that quick. And so it was, in fact, Brad started driving to our state capital 3 hours away just to get paperwork
Wow.
apostilled. Like, we were just so committed. Once we had met him, and it seemed so real, we were like, we
Yeah.
will do whatever it takes to make this happen as quickly as possible.
It seemed like all of a sudden he was our son. I mean, I know legally he wasn't, but it seemed like he was our son, and he was being held hostage by this paperwork, you know, this
Yeah.
big monster of paperwork. And I was so angry that it was like, I'd send this document off and it would take 6 weeks to get, you know, rubber stamp to be sent on. And it was like, can we speed this up? And they're like, nope, it's 6 weeks. I mean, unless you live in our state capital is Harrisburg. Unless you live in Harrisburg and you could take it down. It's like, well, I could drive 3 hours and get it done that day.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing that 3 times
Mhm.
Wow.
to just speed it up because we are not patient people.
Well, it's so hard when you've seen that, like you've seen his face. I mean, even through Zoom, you've interacted with him. It becomes not this like, I don't know, just, oh, this thing is happening. It's like, this is real. This is a real person. This is our child. And he's, you know, halfway around the world.
Yes.
That's
yeah.
hard.
I think if I had to find a silver lining of doing it through Zoom, it would be that our NGO was able to,
Where's NGO?
Vesta, who we work with in Bulgaria, the non-governmental organization, was able to record our visits. So we do have those now. We can look back like literally the first time we ever locked eyes. You know, we have that on film and stuff. So that is nice to have that we wouldn't have if we were there in person.
Yeah.
But once that was all over, then we had to wait court. So on March 1st, which is a big spring holiday in Bulgaria, it was like a celebration over there, which is also our court date. We received the approval from court to continue on. So, and then really it was trying to do all the things with international travel, except you're doing it in like 6 days or instead of 6 months.
Yeah.
So we were booking travel and finding our place in Bulgaria and all that kind of stuff. Which I think was really stressful, just to like the kids here, you know, organizing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Childcare for our other two.
Yeah.
And it was stressful. I wouldn't say that was the most stressful part. It was a whirlwind, but it wasn't, you know, it was like we were close to the finish line, it seemed like, you know, so it's kind of like a motivation to keep going.
So then we got to Bulgaria, and Vesta was awesome to work with. We had a really great experience with them. And we, on our second, or actually technically our third day, we went to go meet Nico for the first time. And when I say meet Nico, we were also picking him up to take him home. So that was the other unique thing.
Wow.
Since we didn't have that first visit, literally the first time we met was when we were taking him home with us.
Yeah, and the orphanage's director was out on sick leave or whatever, a bereavement leave. And so there was no like lengthy meeting or anything. It was, I mean, I feel like we were in the orphanage for 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Was it even 15 minutes? Maybe it was 20 minutes. I don't know. It was not a very long amount of time at all that we met him. He was, I think I was the first man that he'd ever met. And so he was intimidated, afraid of me a little bit at first. And he was like very cordial to us, and then it seemed like after 10 minutes he was like waving bye to us, and it's like, no, you're gonna come with us and never leave. You know, it was just like all of a sudden he was ours.
Yeah,
we had been preparing for it for a long time. He had not been, so he was very confused as to like what was happening. And
I do feel bad for him, because what was the most exciting day for us is different from his point of view. Like, I just keep thinking about him leaving his bedroom, never going to return. And that's an exciting thing in the long run. But for this little guy, you know, he's not choosing us, you know, this is just all kind of happening to him. And just how kind of crazy and stressful that was. He had never been in a car before. So he had horrible motion sickness when we drove back to Sofia from his town.
Mental note, take vomit bags, because apparently that's a common thing. He threw up all over the place.
Poor baby. He threw up quite a bit on that drive back. And he seemed like intrigued by us, but also everything was so new. We had to go straight to, finish up some of his passport, get his passport picture taken. So it was a whirlwind for him. And then what we discovered about him is that he loves being outside and he loves taking long walks. And we like taking long walks, especially because when he wasn't in the stroller, he had never had the opportunity to just freely explore before. So when I say he was into everything in our Airbnb, he was into everything. So he was much safer when he was confined to the stroller, and he was happy too. And so most of our time in Bulgaria, luckily we were there in the spring and the weather was nice. We took, we spent hours exploring the city and walking around in the stroller.
Our translator said at one point, like, what did you do yesterday? And we had told her some building that we had gone to see. She's like, oh, so you figured out public transportation? I'm like, no, we just walked. It's like, that was like a 10-mile round trip. It's like, yep. We were out for like 3 hours, and Nico loved it and we loved it, and he didn't cry. And, so he absolutely loved, he was super intrigued by wind.
Yes. He loved the wind. He kept opening his mouth to like feel it, or putting his hands out to feel the wind.
Cute.
He loved we took him to a few playgrounds, but never having that experience, he really, even the slide was kind of like befuddling to him what he should be doing with it. And he, once he's been with us for a while, he's starting to put all the pieces together of, how fun playgrounds can be. But at the time it was very confusing to him. I think that airplane ride home, I like to call it my birth story, because he did not exit my body, but by golly, that 20-hour airplane ride felt like labor.
Oh my goodness.
It was tough because obviously he is confused. He's scared.
Yeah.
We're asking him to like stay confined in a seat, and we had taken a whole book bag full of toys that he had no interest in whatsoever. He really, what did he do the whole time?
Played with the vomit bag. All he wanted to do was to play with the vomit bag. For 9 hours on the long leg of flight over the ocean. It was, and it's his body at one point, it feels like it's nighttime for him, but we're traveling with the sun. And so it was daylight the entire way. And of course, people don't put their shades down on the airplane. And so it was just that 9-hour flight was probably the worst 9 hours of our.
That was rough.
It was brutal.
But then we got home, and he immediately, I felt like he adjusted so quickly to being
He
here.
really did, yeah. Within a couple of days, he was used to the time zone change.
Right. We thought the time zone would be really hard for him. He did great. We have 2 biological sons, and so they who did not travel with us. So they were so excited to meet him. So that first meeting of all the boys is probably one of my other favorite memories. They were just so excited, and but also like they didn't want to scare him. So they were being very cautious and giving him hugs. So, it was getting him here. Like, I know, and for anyone who's in this process, being in country gave me anxieties that I didn't expect. And I think a lot of it was just being in such a different state of mind and in part of the world, and all the things that I wasn't used to. Plus now there's someone in my family that I had never met before. And, we're just all trying to click and gel. Getting home was a game changer, and I was able to start parenting out of my comfort zone, and that anxiety got so much better. But it definitely was there in country, and I almost felt guilty about it. Like, no, this should all be happy. It's not, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that it's not going to work out, or that you're a bad parent. I think that's very natural to have conflicted feelings about, this seems harder than I thought it would be, or there's difficulties, that is all part of it.
I think a lot of it had to do with like tiredness, Nico wasn't sleeping great at night. And so we were tired a lot and missing our other 2 kids and wanting to be home and wanting to, but we were trying to appreciate, there was a lot of calm times when we were going for these nice long walks and exploring the city. And like, it was sort of like a vacation with in a way, sort of. We were trying to appreciate it, and it was such a whirlwind. It feels like we were there, 10 days?
Mhm.
It feels like 3, like it all kind of mushes together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Kristen was trying to kind of making it sound like it was terrible. It wasn't terrible.
No,
There
no.
was a lot of,
It was not terrible at
That's a
all.
lot of emotions. It's a big,
is.
it's just a lot. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yes.
So, I don't know why I said so. I didn't have a so.
You're good.
But yeah, now that he's been here, we can tell you, oh my gosh, the leaps and bounds this child has made is incredible. First of all, learning the language. I mean, he's still not speaking a lot, so he's 2 now. He'll be 3 in a few weeks.
He's learned to communicate completely without knowing. He says maybe 10 or 15 words, but he can gesture and get us to understand exactly what he wants.
And he understands everything that we're saying.
Right.
Like the way he's picked up English the other day, or we were just talking on the phone earlier today, and Brad was talking about Nico's nap. And Nico heard the word nap, and he started like shaking his head like, no, I don't want it. No, we were talking about something you already had. So he's just a sponge with the language. Animals that he'd never been around animals before. He loves our family dog, Maple, like is obsessed with her, always wants to be cuddling. We took him to his first petting zoo. And he
thought the goats were dogs.
Yeah, he kept calling the goats
I
doggy.
can see that. Yeah.
But he was, so I think he has this real love of animals that will help to cultivate. And that's really cool to think that he wouldn't have had exposure to that, and just all the opportunity that he has, and we're just he is such a blessing.
He is, and he's fun. It's fun to see him develop. It's fun to see him. We're in Pittsburgh, and it snowed yesterday for the first time this season. And he and I were at Target, and it started snowing while we were in Target, and I didn't realize it. And we came walking out, and he was so like confused but delighted. Like, what is this? There's something falling from the sky. And he kept gesturing to me as if like I maybe wasn't noticing it. Like, huh? And trying to catch the snowflakes. And he's obsessed with stuff like that. Like trick-or-treating, my goodness. It's like 3 houses to figure out like, oh, these people are giving me something and I'm giving them nothing. And
it is kind of a funny concept.
Right.
Think about it.
Went crazy. And
oh my gosh.
So he loves, blending into our American traditions or not even American. Snow is not American. It's just life, like understanding life.
Yeah.
So
he also loves people, which I think is so precious considering everything that he's been through. He loves he
loves people too much.
It's hard to go to the grocery store with him, to be honest, because he wants to talk to everybody.
Oh, I love it.
He like shouts down the aisle, people, hello, hello. He tries to hug the cashiers. He's too friendly,
I'm sure they're all very charmed by him, though.
Yes, people love Nico. We've taken him to a restaurant a few times, and the idea of like a server at your table, like that is a totally new concept. So we think he believes that like the server is our friend. And so when he sees him on the other side of the restaurant, he's like, hey, like that's our friend. And he's at a different table now.
Oh my goodness.
Seeing the world through his eyes is one of the most fun things I think we've experienced. It is amazing to just, anytime you have a child, seeing it through their eyes is exciting. But there is something different about having like an older child who has experienced none of this and getting to experience it for the first time with them, I think is such a huge benefit that we have gotten out of this whole process.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. What a beautiful story. I'm so glad he's doing well and just sounds like an absolute delight. So this will be your first Christmas all together as a family of 5. What traditions are you guys excited to share with him?
You want to talk about our tree tradition?
Sure. I was going to talk about the tradition of the children buying me presents. Yeah. So we go cut down our own Christmas tree. We have this place we go to every year, and then we go to a hot dog shop afterwards, and it's a very healthy day. And then we come home and decorate it. And we just talk about, the holidays that he has seen. We got him home here at the beginning of April. So, Memorial Day, yes,
Yeah.
he saw some fireworks on the 4th of July. Yes, there was the trick-or-treating. But like the big American holidays are coming up here with,
Yeah.
we have a big Thanksgiving gathering, and then we typically, weather permitting, we go out on the day after Thanksgiving to go cut down our tree. And I think he's going to love that. And then come home. He's, like Kristen said, when we first got him, he's obsessed with exploring and going through things. And he has calmed down with that a little bit, but he still loves to do that. I mean, his favorite thing, he has a backpack. He loves taking stuff in and out of it. And so how low are we putting the ornaments on the Christmas tree? Because he's going to be obsessed with the Christmas tree. It's going to be a thing. Hopefully it's a good thing. We might need to we haven't even talked about this. We might need to get like one of those baby gate or like fences to put around it. Because,
or like Nico ornaments that he's allowed to play with.
Don't put your glass ones on the
high on the tree.
So, but it is, Kristen would listen to Christmas music all year round if I let her, but I try to hold it off until after Thanksgiving with the Christmas music. And so I just think that it's such a magical and wonderful time of the season that we just ordered his stocking, and, we're excited to share all that with him. Plus, his birthday is in December. A week after Christmas is Kristen's birthday, and is one of our other children's birthdays. So have the holidays and the gift giving is coming fast and furious here.
Jam-packed, yeah.
I'm excited about one of the things we like to do is to drive around the neighborhoods and look at all the Christmas lights. And I think there were our neighborhood has a lot of Halloween decorations, and some of them are a little spooky. They didn't seem to faze him. But I think he's going to love like seeing the house is lit up and all the decorations. So, he even says hi to like the inflatable like decorations. So he'll love it.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Oh, well, I wish you guys, it sounds weird to be saying this given when we're recording it, but I wish you guys a very Merry Christmas. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yeah,
thank you. It was our pleasure. Thanks for having us, and Merry Christmas to you too.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Or watching
our final episode of the year, and even more importantly, a huge thank you to the families that were willing to share their stories with everyone.
We hope that as you go into the rest of your day, you're as inspired and hopeful as we feel. If you like what you heard, please share our podcast. You can also go on and rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back with a new episode on January 5th.
For more information on how to support the work we're doing at AGCI, please don't hesitate to reach out to us by emailing us at info@allgodschildren.org or visiting our website, allgodschildren.org. You can also follow us on social media at All God's Children International.
Thank you so much for your support. We hope you have the merriest of Christmases.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We'll see you soon.